Good evening and welcome back to the Barebones Survival channel. And as we're starting off, we're going to be talking about a number of different things that hopefully will be of interest. I want to talk about how I arrived at the understanding, if you will, of why we needed a different methodology for civilian type survival as opposed to the idea of the military survival. And essentially the bottom line in all of it has to do with realizing who it is that is doing the survival. Now, the average soldier is going to be pretty much young, fit, strong, without any health issues, well-trained, capable of doing quite a lot of stuff, as a matter of fact, which many of us are not in a position to do so. So how then will it change our view of survival? Well, it changes it on two levels. The first view, if you will, is that we are not trying to achieve a mission. We are not trying to do something in a situation where even if things go wrong, we nevertheless are going to have to continue doing those things, which a soldier certainly will. The main point, if you will, for a civilian is if you are ever in a serious survival situation, the aim is to get out of it. And in that regards, you want to minimize your time in the field, as it were. Secondly, I would put it to you that on many occasions, the moment in which you will get a survival situation is not going to be when you're out hiking or camping, though absolutely it can happen and does happen. For the most part, it's going to be in your normal daily life, which is why we came about with the absolutely basic type kit onto which you can add all kinds of other things as suits you and as you're capable of doing. And as I've pointed out, there is a list of the absolute basics that you would possibly want to use. But then I suppose that we need to establish, how did I get to this idea? What was the point? And the answer was, when I started up with really studying survival and survival techniques, I did what everybody would logically do, and I went to check out all the different military kits, which were pretty impressive and worked very well indeed for a soldier. And I will go as far as to point out that when I actually was in the military, they worked very well. It was absolutely the kind of thing you wanted to have with you as much as possible, but it didn't work as well for normal living, if you will. Too much gear, too heavy gear. The weight didn't justify its carrying on a normal daily basis. So it became a point whereby I needed to rethink. And I thought to myself, well, who actually ever does survival more or less regularly, but who are civilians? And the answer is, well, early people. And I started looking, first of all, into the Bushmen of South Africa, because, well, I'm from South Africa, and they came from the area in which I live, and they literally now have been for a very long time been doing survival in South Africa in the desert environs, and very, very successfully. So clearly they know something. So I started looking at the tools that they carried initially. And if you go and do a bit of research on it, you will quickly realize that there are certain basics. The first items that are the most well-known and the most obvious is that they do use the famous Bushman bow and arrows for hunting. And absolutely, in terms of hunting, that would be very important. But that's not the primary for survival for most of us. That's an additional in that regard. If there is an extension to needing to be out, initially the key things are not the bows and snares and throwing sticks and all. It's far more mundane item. They absolutely carry things like digging sticks, which were used for gathering food. So the ability to dig is quite important. A bag to carry, they are known for what is called a kaross, a hide sling, which is a combination of bag, blanket, and cloak, which allows you to carry things. You can use it as a blanket, and this is echoed in a number of other African cultures as well, where they will have the blanket or covering, which is used as an item of clothing, but also to carry things. So they will have that especially. Then, of course, because we are in Africa after all, you would have your water container. And that was the first most important thing to consider, an ability to carry water and to carry the container for water on you as being a critical point. Along with that, you will find that there are specific things, and the first is the knife, which is the tool for everything. There are times when, if they don't have their normal digging sticks and such, they will use the knife to dig with. They will use it to cut anything that needs cutting. They use it for processing game, for processing food. So it's a very utilitarian and quite a simple shape, which, funnily enough, is echoed in the modern day in the famous American Kefart knife, which shows that the specifics of the blade is that it be robust, sharp, and usable for a lot more than just what you would normally think a knife is used for. So the knife is absolutely critical at the base of the kit. The second thing that they very much carry, there's the means to light a fire. Now, of course, flint and steel, where possible. The bow drill, very much so. But of course, if we're going in the modern realm, a means of fire starting. And of course, we have a whole ton of those available to us of varying varieties. The next thing that they always seem to carry in their gear is cordage, which is used to both replace bowstrings, to tie anything up that needs tying up, for carrying food back, for bundling things. You cannot beat cordage as a multi-use tool. And what's very interesting is that in the traditional, they often make their cordage from sisal, which even to this day is still very much used throughout Southern Africa as cordage for gardening and everything. It's quite strong. You can weave it fairly well. It's very cheap. It's easily replaceable. It's an excellent source of cordage. And as such, I actually use it in many of my hiking kits anyway, simply because it's that good. there are many other varieties of cordage you could use, and if you preferred to go the way the modern view thereof, of course you can go with your 550, which has a great many advantages and all, and of course you can upgrade your knife. One of the most traditional ones for South Africa, of course, is the famous okapi, which is used all over and in all kinds of ways, which is a backlocking folding blade and is hugely popular. They're fairly cheap, and they are carried by virtually everybody simply because they're good. Naturally, I prefer to carry my slightly more modern, there it is, honey badger, which fulfills exactly the same thing and a number of other advantages of a modern blade. But so we're looking at a blade, a flame, and a cord, and a water bottle, and a bag. These are the absolute basis. And from these things, you can fashion everything else, be it a bow, arrows, spears, throwing sticks, snares, digging sticks. All of these things can be created if you've got these basics. But I wanted to go further with this and see what other early peoples used as well for general sort of living. We know that the Bushmen made absolute certain to put together things from what was around them, gourds and ostrich shells used for water bottles, which, by the way, are very, very effective. The ostrich shell is in a very tough material, so to use their eggs shell to make a water bottle is very, very effective, and they're big enough. They'll hold a good 500 to 800 milliliters of water as well, so they carry more than enough. And if you've got two of those, you've got over a liter and you're well on your way. But then I went further and I said, what about other people in other places? Because obviously if you're overly specific, that's never going to be quite good enough. So I started looking at the different Eskimo tribes, and sure enough, harpoons, kayaks, spears, bows and arrows, absolutely used for hunting and defense. Kayaks, because they live very much on the water. Sleds, of course. But when you get down to it, they are basically down to your key tools once again. Obviously from the geographic perspective, because it's snow and ice and all the rest of it, they have the traditional anorat, which are the specialized clothing that are layered, made from skins and things, which are largely waterproof and very warm, and of course snow goggles from the glare. But with that, they had two particular tools that are always carried, which is the ipike, which is basically an ice cutting knife specific to their environment, which can also be used to process food, process meat, hunted things. And then the ulu, which is absolutely famous, and while it's a very distinctive design and might not be quite what you would think of as a general blade, its utility is immensely effective, and variations on it are even used in modern times as being incredibly effective. They are excellent for skinning, scraping, cutting meat, and a whole lot of other skills as well. And in terms of general sort of, we can say, home use, they're very hard to beat in that regard. They are extremely good. So we've got the knife. We know as well that cordage was always carried, spare cordage, often sinew and similar things. They didn't have access to too many of the cordage making plants in that regard, so they used what was there, but nevertheless immensely effective. Sinew woven correctly is very strong, flexible, and so cordage again. And then of course, because it does get very cold, the means to make fire once again. And it's known that your fire making kits were in the snowfields, of course, not only massively important, but also extremely valued, and were considered to be essential for everybody to have. So again, you've got the blade, the flame, the cord. Water obviously is not as hard to find, though they would carry water bottles, but theirs were made specially so they fit under the clothing so that the water didn't freeze, which is your biggest problem. Not the getting of the water, but not having it go solid. So once again, the basic kit, which is worn shelter, which is very interesting, a means of water, generally also a small amount of rations, which we will get to right at the end, and then your blade, flame, and cord. Many times as well, in both cases, they would carry a basic means of medical in the form of some kind of a bandage type thing that if you were seriously injured, you could bind yourself up so as to avoid further debilitation of the injury until you can get back to a safe place and get proper medical attention, which of course in our case means something like a pressure bandage, which is exactly the same thing, just modernized, made better, and there's nothing wrong with modernization, of course. Now, I then started thinking about it, and I started looking at many other cultures, and the next obvious place to go was the Americas, to the native Indians. What did they carry? Now, this is quite an interesting situation because it showed me the importance when comparing against to the geographical effects on the tools that you carry. So we know that the key blade for the Eskimo is the ulu, which is a crescent-shaped blade. And it suits their lifestyle and it suits the way that they work things. We know that for the Bushmen, it's basically a spear point blade, whether it's a fixed blade or a folder in the modern age, doesn't matter, but it's the shape of the blade suits the kind of lifestyle that they lead. And we found again, there's a similar thing because the principal cutting tool for the Native Americans was not just the knife, but also the tomahawk, a light axe that could be used for multiple things and was very, very effective. And usually you would find the tomahawk was paired with a knife. Almost exclusively in all cases, the knives are single-edged, which is quite interesting. The knives function as scrapers, but the tomahawk leads you to a lot more utility when you have a lot more forest trees and large type trees available. And I never quite understood why the axe was so important in the Americas until I saw some of the Google Maps of the kind of landscape you get, which of course is fairly alien to most of South Africa, where it's a lot drier and the trees are not generally as tall unless they're a commercially planted thing. So it taught me that picking your knife depends very, very much on where you are, because that matters greatly. Huge thanks for the likes on the live there. I do appreciate that greatly. And remember, guys, do like, share, subscribe. The channel relies on you. So I thank you for that. So send plenty likes. And thank you to, I cannot read that name, Shanbatha. Sorry, my vision is not so great and I'm working on a small screen, so forgive me for that, but thank you for the likes. Very much appreciated. So we start looking at the same tools but different, if you will. Now, the next thing that they all carry were gourds. Gourds were used for all kinds of things, carrying food, carrying water, but also for small tools and things. So we know immediately that they would carry a water bottle of some kind as a regular thing. Now, they also had a number of other methods of carry. Often instead of the bag, they would have a kind of basket, which was very effective, and especially specifically for their geographical environment. So what we've come down to is you almost always, and I took this further in early cultures, in a lot of other places as well, you would have a blade, a flame, and a cord, a bag for the carrying, and a water bottle of some kind. Those were your primary 5 items, which onto that you add your absolute base medical. And I've noted as well in a number of them that along with some form of bandaging that you can close up a wound, they would often carry a small jar of certain healing salves, which were very popular, and I in fact do the same. I note as well that in certain areas, especially further south in the Americas, they would carry bug repellent, which of course down there is very important, especially when you get to the swamps. So there are certain personal and geographical items beyond mere survival. So your survival level is one thing. And then on top of that, you would have what I suppose you would call a hiking kit. But at the same time, it's not so much a hiking kit as a walking around kit. It's the kind of thing that you would have for utilization on the daily, if you will, your EDC. So your survival kit becomes your basic, used for everything. And it taught me as well that, especially as a civilian, your survival kit is not a kit that you tuck away and never touch. It's tools you use continuously and should be able to use continuously. So it adds to their familiarity, your comfort with, and in many occasions you will find that, and I did find this, especially when I worked in the missions out in the field, that you would find yourself in situations that you would never consider a survival situation, simply because you actually had the tools to manage it, and therefore it wasn't. You can add additional items to your base layer then to make this walking around kit that you can handle pretty much anything, even if you are forced to stay a night out. As long as you understand your environment, you've got the basic skills. And if you keep the kit light enough that along with everything else that you carry on the daily for school, for work, for whatever the things that you like to carry, it doesn't become more weighty or bulky that you won't carry it and you will leave it at home. So I know a lot of people who will insist on carrying their earbuds because they like to listen to music. You've got your cell phone, you might have an extra battery bank, you've got whatever tools and materials you use for your daily work. So if you're at school, it's your school books, your pencils, your pens and all of that. If you're at work, very much the same, to be honest. Some things never change. So you need to be able to carry all of the things that you want as well without interfering with. And then how you go about using them is going to change, because again, we're not talking about being super covert and hiding away and dodging an enemy. We're civilians. We're dealing with an emergency to get ourselves to safety and hopefully get help, food and shelter and all the rest of it. Also, we need to be aware that in modern survival, unless you are out in the bush, for the most part, what you can't do is hunt, simply because there isn't the means out there. If you're in an urban environment, there isn't really anything to hunt. So you need to consider ways around, and it's the ways around that depend entirely on your environment. I was discussing with somebody the other day, and they were talking about how, wow, but you've got no sear kit along with your survival kit. And for the most part, I'm in a rural area. I will never need a sear kit. It's not something I will ever use. Would I use it in a city? That's different. I possibly might find it important, which is very different indeed, compared to if you're in a bush survival type environment. The sort of things to be carried must be adapted to where you are. So having an axe if you're going out into the bush, yes, but not if you're going out into the city. It's probably not an important item there. You've got to deal with local laws, you've got to deal with societal laws. There are all kinds of things that you could have, but all of them come back to your absolute basic minimum. And at least in my country, your blade, flame and cord, your ability to deal with an immediate emergency medically, so a pressure bandage, your personal immediate, which in my case, I'm diabetic, I take chronic medication, therefore I have a stash of that. But again, it's tiny, it's light, it's easy to carry. And then with that, hydration, a means of hydrating yourself, because it gets very hot, and dehydration not only can but will kill you. Hey there. Awesome. Thank you so much for those likes and things there. So along with that, we've got a certain basis, and with that is the bag. Now, I don't advise you to go and get yourself a carrosse, because obviously that doesn't fit to the modern environment by any manner or form. But instead, what I am saying is have a think about the clothing you wear suitable and the means of carry. Now, if I go to work, I take my backpack, which means I can put quite a lot of stuff in it, including at the bottom of it. I missed what happened there. There was a message that popped up that I couldn't read. Nevertheless, I can easily fit quite a bit of kit in the bottom. Ant here, welcome Ant. Ant, awesome. Very good to have you in. You are also part of my Strange Bones as well, I think, if I'm correct. Thank you so much for all the likes and the support. That is awesome. You are a great man, sir, and I appreciate it greatly. I have my phone on sideways, so reading everything that's coming up is a little bit difficult, and I didn't recognize the all the different numbers. So it's warning me that there's not a very good connection in that regard, but that's fine, we don't care. We'll just take that so that it doesn't overheat. Antoinette, you are a true darling, my dear, and I thank you. So, in terms of picking the right bag, now I've been actually working on redesigning the bag I carry, simply because for the most part I want to minimize. I don't like the weight, I don't want to have the bulk, and if I'm just going around, I don't want a backpack even. My backpack I always used to put in paperwork and all of that stuff for work, so it was convenient for that situation. But when I go walking, I don't want a backpack. But I do want the means. And I've discovered that as a civilian, your absolute best bet, for example, which actually works logically in a great many ways, we all know that if you go and get a cool drink, it comes in a buddy bottle. They are light, they are effective. 500 mils of water generally for a day is more than sufficient to manage for walking around and keeping hydrated. You can, of course, have the cool drink, which doesn't hurt. And I discovered something that turns up in just about every bought pre-made survival kit that every single survivalist throws out immediately as being rubbish and not proper survival gear, is that funny little clip that you can put on your belt that you can then clip a bottle to your belt so it hangs and your hands are free. And actually, in my opinion, for a civilian, maybe not for the military, who have full-on water bottles and pouches and all the rest of it, that works incredibly well as part of your survival kit. It is absolutely brilliant. And of course, the advantage of having the buddy bottle is if it gets a bit old or manky, you throw it away and buy another one. It's not that difficult, and you can use them without any real difficulty. Now, we know, of course, along with that, getting water in South Africa is a very difficult thing. Not because it's not always available, though it is harder to get in many places. The real problem... that's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for enjoying it. And yeah, any comments and questions and anything like that, feel free to go wild. So I find that your plastic buddy bottle is more than brilliant. It's also the kind of thing you would expect. It's not as convenient to carry all the water filters and things that you do in a bushcraft environment. So I find that purification tablets work far, far better, because you can drop one in a bottle of water, wait the requisite time, and then you're good to go. You can also then carry sachets of electrolytes and just flavorings, really, that you can drop into your water to make it better. There are so many on the market, and thankfully, seeing as I'm diabetic, a great many of them are sugar-free, which means that you can boost your energy, you can boost your electrolytes, you can rehydrate, but the kit surrounding it is so small and light that really it doesn't get in the way. It's not an issue. If you're going with a folding knife, it can slide right down inside your pocket and not be so obvious at all, but still be on hand when you need it. A bit of cordage, easy in the pocket, no issue. I actually found a very nice little pouch that came with a set of camping cutlery that I don't use for the cutlery, but it's sort of wallet-sized-ish, made of a good nylon with a Velcro top. And I put my survival kit into that because it fits, it's pocket-sized, it's easy to carry. I can slip it into my jeans and forget that it's there until I want it. You just clip the water bottle carrier to your belt. Now I've got my means to carry water. I've got my full survival kit, a couple of extra water purification tablets because we're in South Africa, well, I am, where it's that dry and it's good to have, but they take up virtually no space. I can carry enough for at least 6 liters without any effort, and taking up almost no space. You chuck in your clipper lighter, which the clipper is the best. As I said in the last live, you cannot beat a clipper. It's got so many uses and functionality for survival that it is absolutely the best, better than a Bic, which it does all the same things as. So I've changed from Bic to clipper because clipper is better. So I've got my fire source. I add a tiny ferro rod, which, owing to the shape of a clipper lighter, I can actually tape to the side of the lighter and it doesn't get in the way. I can use the lighter as per normal, but then I have a ferrocerium rod on hand if it really became a difficulty or an issue, and a little bit of tape, which everyone knows is a flame extender and therefore great for survival. And so I've modernized the absolute basics of the, what we would call, I suppose, primitive people in that regard, keeping all the functionality that they've got, and yet at the same time improving it and achieving what works for a civilian without making it so heavy that I can't carry the extras that I would want for specific things. So if I'm going hiking in the bush, I have a kit which builds on my survival kit and adds a few extra things, which allows me to then deal with bush-related things. If I'm going into an urban setting, I've got certain things that I carry suitable for the urban setting, including those things I like. I keep my earphones, I keep my cell phone, my charger, my charging cables, all of that stuff, because I will use them. They're not necessarily directly survival related, but I carry them because it's what I use on a daily basis. And I don't want to have to sacrifice that, but I also don't want to end up with so much gear that I can't carry it. And this makes the balance that makes it something that you can and will carry, and therefore be able to manage if things do go wrong. You might say, well, I'd like to have more than just a pressure bandage. Well, you can take a Ziploc bag and slide in a few extras. I do. My hiking kit absolutely does. My daily EDC bag, which is it's a micro backpack, I suppose. So it's designed more like a backpack, but it would be about the size of a waist pack or a fanny pack, as they like to call them. So minimalist, not in the way, easy to carry, isn't an issue, but nevertheless will have all the utility I require. Now, I wanted to take it a step further, and I've been working on the idea of creating a small sling pouch that will carry all of that gear and have a slot where I can slide my phone in. But with that, folded up on its back is, you know the old string-lined cheap giveaway backpacks that they like to give out as freebies and all kinds of things. Those things carry quite a lot. You can carry a good 3 or 4 liters worth of stuff in it. And the advantage is you can fold it down tiny because it's only a string-strapped bag, basically. And if I could attach one of those to the back of a pouch in a suitable way, that means I've got a backpack that isn't there until I want it, if that makes sense. These are the kind of things that I think, the innovations that modern life can allow for us, which the moment things do go wrong and I need to carry more for some reason, I've got that utility. Now, the next sort of level as well, which we do need to look at, is the reality that a great many people will tell you, what about self-defense? Well, it does depend on your situation, very, very much so, because not everybody needs to or wants to carry lethal means. That can prove difficult, and it can prove detrimental even to survival if you're not somebody that wants to handle such things. If you're not trained, don't carry it, because guaranteed it will be used on you. This is a standard rule that just about everybody will tell you without a second's doubt, and it's true. It absolutely is true. So carrying lethal means of self-defense is not always advisable. Also, people may want it, and if they think they can scare you, they will then rob you, which makes things worse for you. So what other means? Well, the best sort of things I've found is things like pepper spray, tasers. I saw there was a girl in the office where I worked who was being harassed by one of the guys, and she got sick of it. So she brought in her Hello Kitty taser, and everybody laughed until she used it on the guy when he grabbed at her. And he was out for half an hour. And I must admit, I laughed very greatly because he deserved it. And he was a very big guy. She was quite a small girl. And it might have been Hello Kitty, but let me tell you, those tasers pack a punch. And they're non-lethal. They keep you out of a lot of trouble. And they work. They work really well. You combine that with some pepper spray and you've really covered a lot of bases in self-defense, and the ability to run away without getting you into what we can refer to as legal issues surrounding. So absolutely consider your situation in that regard. If you feel the need to carry such a thing, and many ladies do especially, and rightly, I would definitely say then that it's something you should consider, and consider wisely. That said, I generally walk with a walking stick, and I do it because my balance is not always as good as it could be, but I have the advantage in that I look a lot older, and carrying a walking stick is something that, shall we say, nobody's going to think twice about. But let me tell you, a good stick goes a long way in terms of keeping people at bay, and of course random dogs and things. I went out walking the other day in a very nice public place that I walk in every single day practically, and somebody brought down a dog and they said, no, he's fine, and then the dog tried to bite me. Having my walking stick with me meant I had a barrier between me and the canine. I didn't need to actually smack the canine, but I had it to keep it at bay. So yes, they immediately said, no, he's just young and excitable. But I'm sorry, I don't give a damn how young or excitable it might be. Being bitten isn't fun, and I will not let a dog attack me like that. So yes, I warded it off. No, I did not strike it. And the owner may well have been a bit annoyed with me because I gave him a mouthful about it as well. But hey, sorry, you bring an animal into a public place, you are responsible for keeping others safe from it. That is a fact. So yes, means of defense are always useful, and I think carrying a walking stick at any age while hiking is wise, because it's got so many other utilitarian values to it, be it from just checking where you're stepping, from random snakes to crossing rocky bits or rivers. All of these things are useful. You can very much use it to help make a shelter and more. So having a decent walking stick is massively useful. Now, what other things would I say are worthy of the addition? Well, we're going ultralight, but for example, those really cheap plastic ponchos, you can use those to make a full-on shelter. You can wear it as a poncho and keep the rain off. They fold down to almost nothing, and for those who say, yeah, but they are so flimsy, yes, they are. You're only going to get one, maybe two uses out of it, but that's all you need, and they're so cheap that you can, for very little money, get a 5-pack, and you know, if you actually needed to use one, then you just replace it. One would assume that if you are going out, you would consider the possibility at least of dressing appropriately. We're talking about a situation where you weren't able to, or something happened and you didn't. it's not the regular use type thing, but it is an effective use thing. And yes, you can add to your kit. Like if I go on a full long hike in the bush, and I think there is a small chance I might run into trouble and stay out, I'll take along with me, I have a Mylar sleeping bag. It takes up no space, it will fit in my pack very easily. Why not have it? It weighs almost nothing. So there's a lot of gear you can add. I'm a big fan of having a small saw, and one of them, in fact, I have with me, which shows how cheap you can go because it works. That is a hacksaw blade, and you can see how hard used it is. It's got copper wire to make a handle, it's got a saw on the back and a knife blade on the other side, and it slides into a piece of the end of an old leather belt to make a sheath, and it weighs nothing, it's thin. And now I have a small saw. I also often carry a flexible saw, one of those wire saws. Everyone says they're awful, but actually if you use them right, they work very well. And no, they're not meant for hard use. You're not meant to be building a log cabin using one. But in terms of an emergency, they work really well. And if you get a good quality one, they can cut more than just wood. Even some of the softer metals can be cut with them, which goes to show how much utility you can get out of the right gear. I am going to say one other thing that many forget, but I learnt the hard way. As you can see, I have more hair than everybody. If you ever get a sunburnt head, let me tell you, you don't know what misery is. You think a sunburnt face is bad? Try a sunburnt scalp. It is awful. So I carry a bandana. I can wear it around my neck if I've got a hat on, and wet it to cool me off. If it's cold, actually having something around the neck definitely warms you quite a bit. And of course I can wear it on my head as a head covering if I need to, for the added protection. I can use it as a sling, as a water filter, not a purifier, but a filter. I can use it as a small bag. I can use it to lay things down on. If I fancy stopping for a snack or a meal, I've got something to put over wherever I am. There are so many different uses for a simple bandana, and you can get funky ones that suit your style, no problem. My preference has always been, for many years, I supported the South African cancer charity, which is called Cancer, C-A-N-S-A. And you could go for, I think it was 20 or 30 rand, you could buy a bandana, which is a bit expensive for what you got, but it went to charity. And I've, over the years, gathered 2 or 3 or 4 bandanas, and since then now they like these buffs. I'm not so fond of the buffs. I do have buffs, I use them sometimes, but the bandanas were cotton, and they're immensely useful. You can use the cotton to make charcloth, you can use it for fire starting, you can do all kinds of things with a bandana, and of course you can wipe your face, which is an added bonus. So I've got a number of those bandanas that I always carry. It's an incredibly useful thing, and of course if you're going to support charity, why not do a good one? Do a solid for cancer, because it is a bad disease and it deserves it. So for pretty cheap, you can get them very easily at most major supermarkets when the season goes around, as it were. I used to get one a year, and I've worn out quite a few of them. So, you know, over the years I've gone through many of them and had to chuck. They work, they're effective, they're useful. So I have that. I also like, because I'm me, I get plastic tubes, thin ones, long ones, and put a couple of braai matches in. If you're not from South Africa, a braai is a barbecue. but they're basically a normal match. They're not that expensive. They're just thicker and longer, and they are much easier to use to light a fire in adverse conditions. Inside a plastic tube, they're kept waterproof till I need them. They're not as good as storm matches, but storm matches are very expensive. So yes, I do have some, but generally I like my braai matches. They work just as well as backup to my lighter and ferrocerium rod if I'm out hiking. I will always carry a small amount of medical tape. Now, I'm less worried about using it for medical reasons, but for reasons of blisters, remember, in any emergency, in any survival situation, and just while out hiking, I can almost guarantee that when things go south, you will end up walking. It's the baseline of survival. If you can manage not to, then 100% that's way, way, way better. But I find that pretty much you're going to end up walking. So look after your feet. Good socks, good shoes. If you have the means to carry spare socks because you're planning on going on a longer hike, do so because it makes sense and it's effective. That's just a reality that we work along with because that's how it is. Now, along with that, as your basic survival sort of requirements, there are a lot of other little things that will absolutely make your life better. For example, something I have to date never seen in a survival kit, and I guarantee you're going to want, carry a small pack of tissues for toilet paper, because if you're out somewhere and cannot get to pretty much any civilization, you'll want it. I've been out in a lot of so-called civilized places along the road while traveling, and let me tell you, not only is there none available, the places were dodgy. Gas station toilets and bathrooms are not fun places. Carry your own. So packets of tissues, you get the little packs and you just keep one or two. It doesn't weigh anything, it's effective, it's usable in so many different ways. I like to carry earbuds because they have multiple uses in medical for cleaning out wounds and more the rest of it. I like to carry tweezers because, well, in South Africa, thorns are part of the environment in a major way, and sooner or later you're going to want to get that dealt with. I've carried a large gauge, wide-headed sewing needle for many, many years, for blisters, for splinters, for all of the above. As a medical device, it works. I've never once needed it for sewing, though I suppose I could if I needed to, but as a medical device, it's absolutely fantastic, and I've used it on so many occasions. Carry a whistle. The ability to signal is huge. I know not everybody is a master of the signal mirror, and why would you be? They are very useful. You can get them. There's no reason not to, but really and truly, I would take a whistle over a mirror first off. In terms of the visual, there are other ways you can get around it, but the audible trumps the visual in most civilian cases, just because. And of course, it's very useful if you feel somebody is attacking you or being threatening in any manner or form, simply because it attracts a lot of attention. And the more attention that you manage to grab is way, way, way to your advantage. A good, really loud whistle will make everybody look, because people can't help it. So if somebody's bothering you, immediately that makes them start backing off. And of course, if you've fallen somewhere and can't be seen, a really good loud whistle will attract attention to you. People are curious. And of course, if you know that the civilian emergency signal is 3 short blasts in a row every minute, and it's practically universally accepted as the civilian emergency, that works. Of course, SOS, if you know it, most people do know SOS, that also works. But a good loud blast, really, it's hard to beat. So having a good whistle on hand, I usually have mine clipped to the outside of whatever sling bag or whatever I'm using because it's effective. What about things like torches? Well, there are so many out there, but in general, I find in an emergency situation, I'm not trying to see the dark side of the moon. It doesn't have to be that bright. It does have to be reliable. And I have a small area light, which I bought, which is rechargeable, which is very convenient, which it doesn't give the brightest, maybe 100 lumens top, but it's enough to see where I'm going. It's enough to find the keyhole. It's enough to see what I'm doing around where I'm doing and not trip over things, which means it's enough. And because it's very small and very light, it makes it effective. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. If you're on too long, they get upset and they make you do little puzzles. It's quite exciting. So, absolutely, we've got a number of small things that can be used effectively. Somebody said to me the other day, what about zip ties? Absolutely, zip ties are amazing. And they don't have to be the big ones. The little ones are usable for 100 different tasks. And they're cheap and they're disposable. So, sure. Somebody was asking me as well, why don't I carry a multi-tool or a Swiss Army knife? Why do I like a plain knife? Well, I do carry in my bag, if I go out, a multi-tool, if I go camping and things, but I generally don't need those tools. It's not something I use, so I prefer a plain knife. But absolutely they are effective. And in fact, I must say I've been eyeing out with a great deal of interest the new, I think they call it the Ranger grip that's Victorinox has developed. It's a slightly bigger version. It's got less tools, but it's got some essentials. The Ranger grip hiker, don't quote me on that one, but absolutely an amazingly comfortable, effective knife with a reasonable sized blade and a saw blade and a can opener and bottle opener, because why not? And then of course tweezers and a toothpick, because why not? They're all in a compact thing and it works incredibly well, and it's very sleek, a little bit costly I will say, but very sleek kit. I would highly recommend. If you prefer the multi-tool style of things like a Leatherman, absolutely, they can get very expensive. My problem by and large with them is that the cheap ones are junk and they're not worth carrying, which means if you're going to carry one, you are going to need to carry at least a decent one. Maybe not the absolute top end, but a decent one. And then of course you can have all of the good things that come with these things, which include scissors, files, screwdrivers. Mine is a Swiss Tech, which is pretty much out of the arc. It's about 40 years old, I would say now. It was somebody else's before it was mine, but it works. It's reasonably good quality. It's good enough. It will not break on you. It's got 2 different blades, a straight one and a serrated one. It's got a saw. It's got all the bottle openers and can openers and screwdrivers and rubbish that you might possibly want, and of course the very useful pliers. make of what you will. If you're the sort of person who is a handyman, I'm not, but if you are, then it may well be worth carrying the bigger and betterer variety of that as your main knife, simply because it will suit you. And that's the other thing, your gear must suit you. Remember that for a civilian, your survival kit is an EDC. It's got to be something you will use, that you are comfortable using, you're happy using and carrying, and you will do it all the time. Because that way it is not only on hand when you need it, but you are familiar with it when you need it. And that makes a very, very big difference. So having said all of that, we have reached the end of the basics of the topic. In the next live, we will talk about a whole lot of other things in regards to general usage and the problems of being a civilian, as opposed to a well-trained soldier with all kinds of gear involved there and skills, and talk about the sort of skills that matter for a civilian and where you should prioritize any learning that you get a chance to do, because most of the time we don't. But you will find that there are some very simple skills that once you've got them, they will improve everything. And so we will talk about that then. But until that time, I thank you very, very greatly for being a part of my Survival Live. I do hope that you stay safe out there, and you will join me again next Thursday at 10 o'clock South African time to talk about civilian survival. And I do encourage all of you not only to come back, but come with questions, come with comments. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. I only have one rule on this channel, and that is don't be rude. As long as you are not rude or offensive, we're good, and we can do all sorts of discussion and agreement or disagreement as suits people. And I do hope you will have enjoyed today's chat, and I will see you again in due course. Have a good one.